Welcome to the Head Trash Show. My name is Alexia Leachman and I'm the founder of Head Trash, home to the new and unique head trash clearance method that removes unwanted negative thoughts, feelings and emotions quickly and effectively so that you can achieve clarity, confidence and contentment in your life. My goal with this podcast is to teach you how to create some headspace by helping you to unpick what's blocking you and sharing some tips and how-tos for clearing it. Tune in every week as I share simple strategies to help you to achieve confidence and clarity in your life and business. To find out how to clear your head trash quickly and effectively using our unique method, pop over to headtrash.com to get our free download and subscribe for our free head trash clearance updates. And now for the show. Hello and welcome back to the Head Trash Show. This is me, your host, Alexia Leachman. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, on today's show, I want to talk about emotions and when emotions go bad. Yes, because they do go bad, don't they? Our emotions just get out of control and we seem to be incapable of really mastering them. And they can be the things that really throw us off balance and really scupper our day, where we find our emotions are starting to control us rather than us feeling like we've got an ounce of control over them. So I want to just dig a little bit deeper around this whole emotional imbalancing, or when emotions do go bad, and just unpick it a bit so that you can understand a little bit more about what's going on, and hopefully that'll help you to identify whether or not this is something that's going on for you, and if it is, how you can go about addressing it and hopefully resolving it so that it becomes less of an issue for you. So first of all, when you think about emotions, the first thing I'd like to sort of just talk about really is, what do emotions look like when they're being done well? What is emotions being expressed healthily? What does that look like? And to be perfectly honest, the best place for you to look to really understand how emotions are done when they're done really well is to look at kids. Kids haven't picked up all the stuff that we've got going on, all that stuff that we've picked up throughout our lives that's affected us and made us the way that we are. Kids are just this sort of raw, virgin version of a human being that hasn't been tarnished yet, that hasn't picked up all the dregs of life. And so, and similarly, they haven't picked up all that emotional baggage either because they're so young in their own lives. And they're a really great place to look at with emotions. So, you just watch a child and they are happy to express something very, very fully and, maybe in a very loud, expressive way. And if they're upset, they'll quite happily have a tantrum. They'll scream blue murder. They'll cry. They'll throw their toys out the pram, whatever it is they'll do. But it'll pass very quickly. Children are very unlikely to hold a grudge or to carry that emotion around for any significant period of time. If you compare that to us as adults, where we might hold a bit of a we had a bit of an incident in the morning, we're still feeling a bit rubbish by lunchtime and we just can't shake it. Maybe we've had a fight with somebody, maybe we don't, there's something that somebody said to us, we just can't let it go because we feel angry, we feel guilty, and those emotions just stay with us all day. And that's why maybe some of us turn to drink or something like that to just try and forget that we feel that way. Whereas children just let that go. And in many instances, they can let it go within 5-10 minutes. It's amazing how they just forget whatever it was they're experiencing. And suddenly they're all friends again. They're all happy. They're all back to normal again because they've expressed that emotion and it's moved through their system. So I think that's a really useful place to start when you think about what does good look like when it comes to healthy emotions. So what do emotions look like when they go bad? Well, the way I see it, there's 3 ways that emotions can get out of control. And the first way is stalking emotions. I call these your emotional stalkers. And what I'm not referring to here is some kind of wailing woman that follows you round everywhere. No, what I'm talking about are these emotions that you just can't seem to shake, that you always experience, that you just bring out at every opportune moment. And I'm sure you know people like this that experience emotions in this way. And certainly I had a friend like this a long time ago, and no matter what situation she was in, she was always finding it frustrating, whether she had to wait for the bus, whether she just missed the train, whether she had to call her counsel and sort some nightmare situation that had risen up for her. everything that she was doing was incredibly frustrating, and she was exacerbated by all these things because it was all so frustrating for her. And actually, when you sort of look at some of these things that she was complaining about, they weren't really frustrating. It's just that's how she filtered them all. Waiting for a bus isn't necessarily frustrating. Missing the train isn't necessarily frustrating. Not finding a parking place straight away isn't necessarily frustrating. However, when we have these emotions built within us that we just can't seem to let go, we seem to filter all our experiences through them. And so that's how we experience our lives. So, maybe you notice that in yourself, you're filtering a lot of your experiences through one or two particular emotions. Anger is another one that people tend to hold on to. And there can be so many reasons why people are angry. But whatever happens to them, they have an angry response, whether it's deserved or not, whether that situation does merit an angry response. They will be angry. And anger is a funny one because it can seep out in a number of ways. Anger can show up as being critical or judgmental or impatient, So when you've got some of those things coming up, that's just anger sort of bubbling beneath the surface and showing up in a very sort of subtle but yet constant, persistent way. So that's one way that emotions can just be bubbling away. And I call them stalking emotions because they just kind of hang around like a bad smell and you can't seem to shake them. But I'm going to sort of talk more about that later on, especially when it comes to why they're there and how to get rid of them. But the next one really is two sides of the same coin, the next two, and that is excessive emotion. So maybe when you display the emotion, you just bring it out in full force. And obviously the opposite to that is lack, where you just find it incredibly hard to express any kind of emotion. And so these are two sides of the same coin really. And these two are really a sign of emotions being out of balance, where maybe, if you're doing it excessively, so for example, with anger, if you're doing anger excessively, then maybe it's a lot of loud voices, there's a lot of shaking of the hands, pointing of the fingers, swearing, maybe some physical activity, maybe some, hitting, getting violent, all that kind of thing. That can be a very excessive form of expression of anger. Whereas, if you think about the lack, some people can't express anger. They just don't express it at all. They just internalize it. And internalizing anger is far more damaging to you than externalizing it, because when you internalize it, you're literally trapping it in your body and you're making it a lot worse for yourself, because the worst thing about that is it will come out. But the problem is you won't have any control whatsoever when it does come out. And it will come out, any tiny little thing will make it come out. And when it does, you will hate yourself in the moments that follow, and really wonder why on earth you let that happen. And the reason for that is to say anything, you prefer to keep quiet, maybe you're avoiding conflict, you prefer not to upset people, whatever it is that's stopping you from fully expressing your anger, but you didn't and you kept it inside. Now, another interesting reason I've come across quite a lot why people don't express their anger is they don't know how. They grew up thinking that it was bad to show angry feelings, and so they don't really know how to do anger. And so, think about how you do something like anger and whether or not you're able to express it in a healthy way, whether or not you're able to do anger. You shouldn't never be angry. It's okay to be angry, but you need to just express that in a healthy way. So think about other emotions that you may be experiencing that you maybe do in excess, something like fear. Maybe you're always scared about whatever it is. You worry about the worst possible outcome that in any situation, and therefore you're fearful. You apply fear to virtually every situation. So these are examples of how you can maybe have an emotion that's just there to excess in an almost inappropriate way. It's not in a healthy way, because obviously fear, again, is a very useful emotion to have, but you don't want to be bringing it to the table every single time. You only want it there when it's going to serve you, when it's going to be helpful and useful to, prevent you from dying or prevent you from putting your life in danger or other people's lives in danger. But you don't need to be worried about the majority of things that we go about doing in our daily lives. So, think about where you might be going wrong with your emotions, and that can help you to understand what might be the better way to start resolving it. So I've talked about 3 ways there that we can do emotions badly, and one of them is the stalking one, and the other two are sort of two sides of the same coin, which is the excessive expression or strength that you're expressing that emotion with, or just a severe lack where you just don't and you bottle it up inside. So I'm just going to start with the stalking one first. And the likelihood, what's probably happening with the stalking emotion is that you've basically got some emotional energy trapped in your system, in your body, and you can tell that often when we have stalking emotions, because or even any imbalance of any emotion that you have, because especially when you start waving your hands around when you're in that state. So if you're frustrated and you're waving your hands in frustration, or stress or fearful, and you're really kind of using your body a lot to express that fear, then that is showing that you have that energy within your body that literally is trapped. If you can be angry without actually waving your hands about and actually do it in a very calm way, then that in itself is very visible, that there isn't that energy that's within your body that's trying to get out, with you waving your hands around to shake it out almost. That means you can express your anger healthily because that energy is not there. So what you have when you have these trapped emotions is because they're trapped within your body and you haven't let them go, they're there bubbling, they're just there all the time. So that's why it only takes a tiny little thing for them to come to the surface. But the other interesting thing that happens with these trapped emotions is because we have them within us all the time, we're more likely to attract those emotions in other people around us. So we might find that actually we end up having more of this emotion in our lives, whether it's us or others, because of the effect of like energy attracting like energy. And again, this is a very common phenomenon that you find in nature, in our world. When all women share the same office, they all have their period at the same time. When you find people in the theatre, what happens, there's a large group of people, their breathing will suddenly start falling into sync with each other. When you have lots of people together, they start forming very similar rhythms and energetic rhythms. And so the same thing happens with emotions. It's all about vibration and it's all about energy. And so when you have this emotional energy within you, you will just start to sort of attract that emotional energy in others. So, your life may become more frustrating if you have frustration trapped, because you're just bringing it into your life in ways that maybe other people aren't attracting. So, that's an interesting one to think about, is whether or not you've got these emotions that are trapped, and where, why are they trapped in your system? What experience have you had in an early part of your life where maybe you experienced that emotion and you didn't fully express it and it's actually remained trapped in your system? So that can be a useful place to think, why it might be there in the first place. And a really great way of getting rid of trapped emotions is a technique that I've come across as a result of interviewing a guest on this show, actually, and it's called the emotion code. And I interviewed a lady called Sharan Sadar, and you can check out the podcast interview with her. She's an epigeneticist, and she referred to a book called The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And after the interview with her, I went out and bought the book and read it. And this book does tell you how to clear trapped emotions using the emotion code, and it's incredibly simple to use. And I've used it a lot to clear some of my own stuff and people around me that I know, and with some clients as well. And it really is really, really powerful. So I would encourage you to check out the emotion code, but also you can use our 5-step process as well to get rid of those trapped emotions. And the interesting bit that I'm going to go on to next, which our process can help you with as well, is how to deal with the imbalance of emotions as well, because the other two ways that I talked about before, the excess and the lack, that shows an imbalance in emotions. And what you need to do with an imbalance in emotions is to create neutrality. So for those of you who've been listening to this podcast for a while, you'll know what I'm talking about with neutrality. And if you haven't, if you're new to the podcast, welcome to the show. And if you're new, then do dig out the episode that we did on neutrality, and that will help you to understand what I mean about neutrality a lot better. But basically what you need to do with emotions that are in balance for you, either in excess or lack, is to create neutrality by working on clearing the trapped emotion that you have within you around whatever that emotion is. So work on stress, fear, frustration, guilt, whatever it is that is always there for you, or you do it in excess or lack. And then make sure you work on the opposite of it as well. And that, by working on the opposite emotion, as well as the emotion that you're working on that you have an issue with, will help you to create neutrality. And while it won't prevent you from building up that trapped energy again, because we have life stuff comes along and stuff happens to us. We can't prevent that stuff coming in all the time, but certainly when you've got the right tools to be able to manage it and keep yourself in a great place going forward, then it means that it won't ever get as bad as it currently is. So there's two really good techniques there that you can use to really start calming down your emotions and bringing yourself back to a healthy place and be more like a kid again. Laugh like a kid, let things go like kids, and just have more levity and more fun, because life is here to be enjoyed. And while you're being weighed down by all these negative emotions, or these emotions that are controlling you rather than you mastering them, is going to weigh you down and stop you from really enjoying the people around you, the people that you love, and the life that you're here to experience while you're here on planet Earth. So I hope that today was a useful podcast and that you'll find something in it that's going to help you to move forward and get to a better place with your emotions. If you've got any questions about anything that I've talked about today, please do not hesitate to get in touch with the show. Email me at hello@headtrash.co.uk. Come and find us on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page, Head Trash page on Facebook. Happy to take questions on there as well. But, feel free to email me here at the show. And let me know if there's anything at all that you want covering in any future episodes. Remember, if you've got something that you'd like me to unpick on the show, like I did a couple of weeks ago with a lady with her coping around her miscarriage, if there's anything like that you'd like me to help me unpick on the show, then seriously, just give me an outpouring of where you're at on email, and I will do that on the show and help you to understand how you can clear your stuff better in the future and really move to a place of happiness, peace and calm. So once again, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a great week. Bye for now. You've just been listening to Alexia Leachman here on The Head Trash Show. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate you leaving a review here on iTunes. And don't forget to pop over to headtrash.com to get your copy of our free 5 Steps to Clearing Head Trash guide. So now stay tuned for upcoming episodes and more tips and how-tos for clearing your head trash and reclaiming your headspace. Until next time, bye for now.